Um,
Hey, sister. What's
hey, sister.
what's going on
Re-
over there?
Mercury retrograde is already kicking in full force because my chandelier broke and I need it for the petty parlor. Now I got it. I think I got it.
We're not
Okay,
at the
there
petty
we go.
parlor yet, listeners, but welcome to
Welcome.
the Sunflower Society podcast. I'm actually in Kara's dining room right now. We are in two separate parts of her house because she does have this beautiful background here and her sound bowls. Beautiful, Kara. But what we're gonna say is we don't really know how to like set up a studio or be in the same space and work multiple microphones. So here we are. I'm downstairs. She's upstairs in her house.
I'm regretting that decision that I just made to put my chair down. There, I think that's better. We're good. Let's go.
Okay. Well, yeah, welcome. We're going to dive right in. We've got some really juicy topics to discuss today, but you mentioned Mercury retrograde. If you haven't listened, we actually did a pretty in-depth like kind of comparison and analysis episode about the Enneagram, the zodiac, and Mercury retrograde. What do those things mean? Are they good things? Are they bad things? Like we had a whole discussion. Anyways, you could go listen to that if you want. But when you said
we're not superstitious, we're just a little stitious. Do you remember what that's from?
I get it. I don't know what it's from, but I get the joke.
I can't remember either, but it's from a movie. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, my question to you was, Farmer's Almanac expert, tell us what to be prepared for because today is the day, I think, before Mercury retrograde starting, and I think it's going to be the longest one of 2021.
Yes, ma'am. Almost a full 3 weeks. I think it goes till February 21st, starts tomorrow. It's no big deal. It's just like historically, people have studied this, and during this time, it appears that the orbit of the Earth, what do we orbit around Mercury, or Mercury orbits around us? I don't even know. I'm not a big astrology
Clearly, you're not
person,
prepared.
but I know what will happen. But it appears that Mercury is tracking backwards from what it normally does. It's like an optical illusion. But during this time, there tends to be like tech issues. You're not supposed to make any big decisions. You're just supposed to kind of be chill for a little bit and maybe not make any bold statements, or you're not supposed to sign contracts and things like that during this time. So basically, like, what you see is not what you get, or the opposite of something is true. In a nutshell, that's essentially. And for us, like,
Well, Mercury's known as the
we
planet.
didn't even know about it. Huh?
Sorry. I think there was a little lag.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mercury is known as what?
Well, it's known as the planet of communication. So that's why, like, I'm looking at an article right now that just came out that says, "Watch out, the first Mercury retrograde is here." It just came out yesterday, and it says it's the most widely dreaded astrological transit. But then they also say, no, it's not all that bad. Anyways, they're just saying communication becomes a minefield, and the feeling that we're missing something casts a dark shadow over us. At least it does for me. That's what this article is saying. But basically,
I don't feel that way.
Yeah, Mercury, I think what happens is it like rotates the opposite direction or something.
It looks like
of what it
doesn't
normally does.
Yeah, it doesn't actually. It just appears that way from Earth.
Got it.
So no big deal. Just something to. It's kind of like the full moon phenomena, Like as a nurse, definitely that's real. Teachers know
As a
it,
teacher
nurses
and
know it.
principal, we know it's real. And on that same vein, you heard it here first. I want to share. Last week we did a big share about who to watch in 2021 in our last episode. So if you haven't listened to Go Sage Yourself yet, make sure you listen to that one. It was our first episode of 2021. But we talked a lot about a lot of things, but we also introduced a lot of like products and like people and organizations to watch in 2021. Again, you heard it here first. But probably not.
Laughing because probably not.
These are probably things you may have heard of. But this one, maybe it is a new brand to you. And I'm going to show it because actually 2 of my dear friends, they started a company called Trade Routes Apothecary. And so they are Chicago-based. They create small batches of sage and lavender wands, incense, like all types of spiritual practices. And also they just smell amazing. Like anything I've ordered from them is just absolutely, you can just tell the intention and thought that's put into it. So shout out to Trade Routes Apothecary. You can follow them at Trade Routes Apothecary on Instagram. But this is actually, I bought the full moon bath ritual, which we know the full moon was the 28th of January. That was yesterday. No, 29th.
Last night.
Whenever. But
Last night.
anytime, whether it's the night of or the couple days after, a lot of people do what's like a full moon bath ritual where there's the way that they curate the herbs and the flowers and stuff. It smells amazing. But yeah, you're just supposed to soak and set your intentions for the next cycle, and put out into the universe what you want to happen, basically. Yeah, they have directions with it. I should probably read them because I'm not doing it justice. You don't just get in the bath and go, woo, full moon.
Hey, is there a problem? Is there a problem with us, like in my screen right now? Sorry, this is an aside. I'm above you, like on top. I'm not side by side with you. Is that going to be a problem? It's already starting, people. Retrograde is starting. Do I look like that on your screen?
No, you're side by side on
Oh, it must be on my settings. I don't know. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, so anyways, I just wanted to introduce that. Any products that you order from them, they come with like directions and what you can do. So they have a full like what your intentions are and what you're supposed to do. And they also list out all the dates of the full moons in 2021. Pretty cool.
Cool.
You heard it here first. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because it's timely and well, now you know. Full moon ritual, Mercury retrograde. Do you have something in your teeth?
No, I was just noticing my gap looks especially big today.
Oh, great. What is that from the full moon or?
No.
Well, I mean, there's probably never been a better time to segue into a little place we like to call the petty parlor. Oh, she's brought out the chandelier. The really tacky cardboard chandelier. And in the petty parlor, it's just a time for us to go, wow, can you imagine? Can you believe that? You know, anyways, let me get ready to share my screen and quit talking. Do you want to cue up the story that kind of broke this week, so to speak? I'm still contemplating why this is a news story. Yeah, I'm just.
Do I want to queue up?
Well, I'm queuing up our screenshots to share. So by the way, if you're a listener, be sure that you like pause this, go over to YouTube right now. Even if you don't want to watch it on there, if you could please go to our YouTube channel, it will link it here in the show notes, and just hit subscribe. We would really appreciate it. But we're Spiritually Strategic the Gonzalez sisters. So go do that. But we also put all of these episodes on YouTube. And
maybe people aren't subscribing as much because we're not like, hey guys, go subscribe here, push the bell, make sure you get all your notifications.
Like I'm not showing
okay.
I'm not showing you guys in the video how to do that. Yeah, that could be, but
you got to be like,
I gave you direction. So pause and
please do it.
go subscribe. Go
It'll
listen.
help us out.
Yeah, it will. In all honesty, it will. And we
will. So I'm going to start, as you cue this up, I'm going to start reading this. Okay.
Perfect.
Sound good? Okay. This was a huge shock to see all over social media, not due to her coming out, but how many parents are outraged by her coming out. Like, y'all don't have anything better to do than hate on this amazing soul. JoJo is nearly 18 years old and has been in the spotlight since she was 9. After Dance Moms, she signed a contract to be a certain persona. Personally, I'm happy for JoJo coming out, for being true to who she is and finding out who she is as a person. I will not stop buying JoJo bows for my daughter, and if she wants JoJo clothing or whatever, you bet your ass I'll be getting it. She is still her no matter who she loves or decides to be with. I absolutely love and respect her even more for coming out, and I believe she's an amazing role model for children. I would rather my daughter grow up and be a kid for as long as she wants rather than obsess over a sexualized role model. Thank you, JoJo, for being this amazing role model, even when choosing to love who you want to. Thank you for not being afraid of backlash and for being you. We support JoJo, and I will teach both my son and daughter to be empathetic, love, and be kind to everyone. Hate is going to be something they are raised with. Or hate is not going to be something they're raised with. Excuse me.
Yeah, okay. let's read
and
that correctly.
JoJo.
So why did you want to bring this to the petty parlor today? I mean, I can make my own assumptions. I want to hear what struck you, especially as a mother. As a mother, I guess what struck you. Let's come from that angle, because I did not see this. And I do have lots of friends whose daughters love JoJo Siwa. I know who she is. Very talented.
So, well, I have a daughter, first of all, and the way that I saw grown-ass women talking about this girl who has been incredibly, like, popular in pop culture. A lot of our daughters are very much, has a very large cult following. She's just a very bubbly personality. I've never heard anything negative about her in the media. A lot of these child stars, you hear a lot of crap about how they are actually in real life, and it's not always the persona that they're projecting. But for her, she has not been a problematic person. And the fact that she turned 18 and now moms everywhere feel free to obsess over her sexuality and to try to diminish who she is as a person because it doesn't line up with whatever belief they hold about what her sexuality needs to be is just, it's sick and it's petty, worse than petty, actually. Like, it's hurtful. I don't think as grown women we need to be setting that tone for our children when we're teaching them about love and acceptance of other people. And whether or not you believe this form of sexuality is quote unquote okay or acceptable, it's really not up to you to decide that. So that's why I brought it to the petty parlor, because I want to discourage that kind of behavior. She's going to be successful no matter what. And the fact that women think that tearing her down is going to do any good or change anything, she is who she is. She always has been. Like, this is just something she decided that she was okay with sharing the world, I assume, because she's getting to the age where she wants to start dating, start exploring her sexuality a little bit more. And guess what? She ain't going to be a little girl forever. So get over it. Not your business.
Well, the other piece is, right, she's a public figure. you don't want, like, you also still want to be authentically you. You don't want to be living in a prison, right? Or feel like
Right.
you can't just be yourself. Um, my question is, like, what comes to mind for me in all of this is, how are some of the mothers who are outraged and previously have supported her and like bought their daughters JoJo bows and let them go to concerts, whatever. My curiosity would be, I would want to be a fly on the wall in a conversation that a mom has with like an 8 or 9 year old, trying to
Hmm.
explain why, well, we can no longer buy JoJo bows. I'm going to throw yours away. We can no
Yeah.
longer watch
Right.
her concerts.
Right.
I want to be a fly on the wall for that
But
freaking
mommy,
conversation.
why? Yeah. Well, I can imagine how that conversation is going to go. Although, that's true. Because a lot of moms who are talking this way aren't going to have that conversation because they don't even think it needs to be a topic of conversation because it's not an option for them in their household.
It'll be
And
like
I'm sorry, but
authoritarian,
guess what? It
or
is an option.
like
And
authoritarian.
when
Like,
you
I'm throwing out the bows.
and sorry, a lot of moms are gonna be shocked when, maybe someday their daughter decides that she's gonna come out. And like to me, this is a reflection of how you're going to treat your own loved ones in these cases. So let's not let's not forget that the way that people are lashing out is a direct reflection of how they are in their own home. That's the fact of the matter.
Yeah, I think
Or
my
do you not agree with that?
no, honestly, my challenge would be like, especially if you're listening and you're like, oh, yeah, I saw that, and you're not sure how you want to approach it with your kid. I think the question you have to ask yourself before you do anything or say anything would be, why, why does it matter to you? Why
Yeah.
does that piece of, and the other bigger thing that is not petty to me is to at least know, like, how is that any different than saying, well, I don't listen to the Sunflower Society podcast because, well, I found out that they're part Puerto Rican and I don't like Puerto Ricans. How is it any different than somebody saying that?
Not. It's not. Because I guess that people, even though private parts are private parts, they feel like they have a vested interest in people's vaginas and penises for some reason. I don't get that because like,
I don't either.
but you understand how concerned certain people are about who you're dating. Oh, are you gonna get married? Why aren't you engaged yet? You know this. I mean, you know this well,
I know it very
but I
well.
know this too. I've known this from like age, I don't know, 16 and up when I started dating.
Mhm.
People are very interested in your future love life for some reason. And so I think they feel that because they're uh, in a heterosexual relationship, they kind of glean that information. Maybe they feel like it's something they need to input on also when it's not a heterosexual relationship. I don't know. But it's shameful to me because she's still a child. I mean, she's technically a young woman, but she just left her childhood. And like,
Right.
what does that say about you and your insecurity? This person over here out in Hollywood, I don't even know where she lives really, but out in Hollywood, she's living her best life, and you're sitting here bitching about the fact that she doesn't like the same type of person that you do sexually.
Get over it. Get over it. That's what we say to you all who are backlashing or burning JoJo bows. Um, you need,
People are burning them?
no, I'm just saying. I
Oh.
I just envision like JoJo bows all across America, evangelical America, magically disappearing from little girls' bathrooms everywhere, and
That's
them being
sad
heartbroken.
though. Yeah,
But
whatever. I think like we
but
need to
my
look
my
at it as an
message would be,
opportunity.
stop being petty. Stop being petty. That would be my message. And it's not even that, Kara. Like, it's exactly what you said. Quit being hateful. And also, you know, if you feel uncomfortable or you feel triggered, then be open and honest with your kid and say, hey, did you hear this? Have you heard kids at school talk about what it means to be gay, especially depending on how old your kids are, right? Like,
But the
use
reality
it as an
of
opportunity to have a conversation and see what your kids already know, you know?
we know that the reality of having that conversation is probably not ever going to happen. It's probably going to be something that is definitely, the subject has changed and is brushed under the rug because it's too uncomfortable. Because how do you explain to somebody that you need to love everybody, but yet, oh, we have certain people that we don't actually like we love them, but we just don't love their sin or whatever you want to call it. Like, we have qualifiers in which we measure people. And so, no, that conversation isn't going to happen because under no circumstances would some parents be willing to even discuss that it's a possibility that somebody is born that way.
Right. It's just, this is wrong.
Because, so
This is wrong. Don't do it.
What would you talk about?
Right. It's just
And how many kids are going to be
unilateral.
traumatized? How many kids are going to be traumatized to hear their mom and dad talk about this in a way that's like, this is so terrible, when they've just idolized this girl. They're looking at her like she's amazing, she's beautiful, she's like
They want to be like
kind.
her.
They want to be like her, and now all of a sudden she's a bad person. I don't know, Justine. I think we ought to leave the petty parlor before I get myself into trouble.
Welcome to the petty parlor, and we'll see you next time because we're going to leave the petty parlor. All right. On that note, that means that it's also time. I'm very excited. Kara selected this week's petty parlor focus. And this week we've both selected, let's be clear, we have both selected for Go Sage Yourself. The same, we've chosen the same clip. I'm going to get it queued up and play our little segue one more time. And can you explain the concept again, Kara? In case we have any new listeners, hey, welcome. We're so glad you're here. What is Go Sage Yourself?
We actually started this segment last week. We titled our episode Go Sage Yourself. So if you're interested in finding out who we saged or didn't sage last week, I'll give you a hint, Melania Trump.
Ooh, and we still want to know. We still want to know if you would pass your sage wand to Melania, actually. So go make sure you watch or listen. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So Go Sage Yourself is the segment where we decide whether we're going to pass our sage wand to bail somebody out that needs a little bit of healing in their life, or we might just keep the sage for ourselves and say, go sage yourself. They would have to get their own in that instance. I'm not sharing. So I can already tell you, I don't think I'm going to pass the sage to anybody in this video, but
I'm attempting to light a match.
Things could change.
Okay, there it is. Mm-hmm. All right, we're getting it going. Oh, this is so much different than using my lighter at home. Okay. All right. I've got the sage ready. All right.
Okay.
So we're
going to need a lot of it. Do you have extra? Because that's also our way of protection.
We have here today for Go Sage Yourself. Okay, it's going nicely. I want you all to be aware that this actually is happening.
Okay.
This is Miss Kat Kerr. You can see she's on Flashpoint. I believe Flashpoint is a Christian network similar to TBN, Trinity Broadcast Network, etc. You will notice she's sporting draped around her a print of the Constitution, the United States Constitution. She also
Yeah.
has a snazzy little pin that says, "I don't do demons."
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Right now
Oh.
I have it queued up to what I want to show, and we're going to like analyze multiple parts of the video, but I wanted to point out those details.
And just for 1 second, can I point out that a revelator, I just looked up what a revelator is. I assume it's not actually a word, but I assume that it is a synonym for a prophet because like to reveal something or revelation would be to reveal something that is unknown. But that actual, that's her job title.
Which is fascinating because I didn't even realize that, because we've seen a couple other people analyze this and put together some montages. This video on Flashpoint, let me get the details accurate here for you all. The video was just released. It already has almost like 750,000 views, 734K. It was released on January 8th on their network. The Victory channel itself has over 500,000 subscribers. So this is just a clip of it. Just want to give some background for you all. So yeah, let's take a listen.
And they came to pass. Now I can tell you, some people can't be chosen by God because they can't believe for anything past a week or 2 weeks, which makes me laugh in a way, because there's some things I waited 40 years for him to do, but guess what? He did them. And he assured me back in 2015 that Trump would sit in the White House for 8 years. And I actually got to pray for them during the inaugural prayer breakfast back in 2016, and he made me prophesy that. And God has assured me today, when he walked into my room and woke me up at noon, almost noon, 11:55 a.m., I'm up for like 20 hours a day, and sometimes I go to sleep, sometimes I don't. But I always had my alarm set for noon, and it didn't go off. God did. And he came in and he yelled as loud.
Wait. Time out. I'm sorry. Isn't that a mental health issue when you're up for 20 hours out of 24 hours in a day? Isn't that called mania? Sorry, that's just, that's an aside, but go ahead. I digress.
Justice will prevail. I will not listen to the stuff, the acts, because they don't know how to put a show on. Hell never has put on a good show. This is still God speaking. Hell has never put on a good show. They've always lost the seats they went after. They lost whatever they were planning to.
So God was talking about political seats to her, is what she's revealing.
So she's saying God is using her mouth hole to speak right now? Like, that's what she's saying?
She keeps,
God is
yeah,
using
when
her
she
mouth
says,
hole.
and this was still God, he was saying this. When she's talking about,
Didn't she just say,
in that
this is
hell
God
has-
talking right now? Didn't she just, I think that's what she
the other, well, one thing I'll say personally, at least how I was taught about prophecy, from a great pastor that I had the opportunity to learn under when I was part of their congregation living in Indianapolis. One of the core things that he taught was that when somebody prophesies into a person's life or regarding an event or whatever, there should be other people present. Just like when somebody speaks in tongues, there are typically people to translate. And when you get into situations where people are either speaking negative or ill will, and they're saying it's prophecy or a revelation, if it's negative, that's not from God. If you're not promoting unity, which is essentially she's saying that God told her, the Democrats won't get the seats. They're from hell. Like, that's what I hear her saying.
Also, isn't prophecy forward telling? It doesn't mean fortune telling. It doesn't mean seeing the future.
And it's
because if it is truly an act of God, it's not something that you have any knowledge about. And so
right.
It's forward telling into somebody else's life. And oftentimes you don't even, like, a prophet, a real prophet, does not even know that that's like they it's not them pulling the words out of themselves.
No, I had, you know about this situation, but before I moved to Chicago, after being a teacher, just a very short synopsis, I had a prophet at a church. I had never had this happen in my life before, speak into my life. It's not super specific. It wasn't super specific. One of my friends recorded it for me. I still have the recording to this day. And within 2 weeks afterwards, two other people who have no connection to him in any way spoke the same exact thing and used
Right.
scripture to support it and said, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I just feel like I should. It wasn't like God told me to tell you specifically on January 20th. That's I mean, and you can, again, in the comments below, right? If we've got theologians, we've got people who have the gift of prophecy, or you believe you do, like, please push back on us. But I'm just speaking from my own experience and how I was taught, and I believe is accurate about prophecy, biblical, God breathed prophecy, godly prophecy. Okay.
The way I see it too, if it's a like whole pony show of either being on television or whatever and doing your prophecy for money
Right.
or income or whatever, you got to kind of like double check, triple check, maybe don't even listen to that, in my opinion.
Right.
Do. He said, I kicked them out of heaven. That was the first show. Lightning was striking. They were kicked out, unseated, and stripped away from power. The second show was in hell on the third day, mentioned in Colossians, when my son stood up and released the fire of God from himself and melted the faces of the hierarchy of hell and made a show of it openly. And he said, the third show is still in rehearsal right now. He said, the enemy is fighting so hard, he still has not won. I don't count it as a win. He said, I will win, and Trump will still sit in the White House for 4 more years. If people cannot see beyond their own nose and understand that if they believe I'm doing something, they should keep on trusting. He said, but I'm about to put a show on nobody expected. And he said, when the ground begins to shake and the landslide begins to start, no one or nothing can stop the fraud, the contracts being shown, the videos that are being made between the parties that made contracts with evil to do evil in this land. This is my country. I will not allow it to be taken from me. This is only the beginning of the great days, the great divine decade, and the second one behind it. I'm setting up and setting in place during this very time, when you should remember, I will always set a table in the presence of your enemies. Have you asked for that table? Because I'm about to fill it. I will expose and wipe clean the platform that they're trying to stand on right now.
So God told her all that and said Trump, like.
Also, I want to know who, like, what
I gotta
they
like the stage
will
again.
not
Keep
take
going.
this
Sorry, I
country
gotta
from
like.
me.
I gotta like.
What does that mean exactly? Who is they? And like, okay, so our kingdom is in heaven, not on earth, as Christians, right? Am I wrong about that? Am I wrong? Did I get that wrong? So like no earthly possession or land or anything can be taken from us because we're in this world but not of it. Remember that?
I know that the Bible says that.
Yeah. So the fact that she is using whatever, I don't know. I can't even. I'm not passing my stage. To me, this is like someone who, I don't know this person, but she apparently has been given a platform by the evangelical world. And I don't know. I don't validate it. I don't like, it seems like somebody who might have needed to seek some kind of psychological or psychiatric help at some point, and she was just told by the church, like, no girl, you're good, you just keep on being a revelator and see what happens, see if
To
you can
be
bring us any coin.
I did not do my full research on Miss Kat Kerr.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all
I don't know
speculative.
about her history. I don't know about her schooling, who her mentors were, anything like that. I want to look at this a little bit more just because I want to see what else she says, because I think I saw a different clip where she was literally saying like Trump was God's son, which again, a lot of people, like I say that I'm a daughter of God, I'm a child of God. Maybe that's what she means, but
And Trump will have to be inaugurated. They will have to say it, even though they don't want to. The time will come when they will have to say.
It's the they language. Obviously, she's calling
Yeah.
the Democratic Party the demons and hell.
Trump is the
Which is
46th president of the United States, and he will sit in that office for 4 more years. I have never changed that plan. I have never given an exact date to anyone when something would happen, because I have my own time, whether it agrees with yours or not, whether you like it or not. This is my country. These are my.
so she's speaking in first person God speak.
Taken from me. And not turn to the left and give yourself as a partner to the evil that wants to take this land. Well, I say no. It will not happen. It will end, and it will be done because I say it will be done.
She's scary.
Watch my hand move. Now that man is done with their process, I will put my show on.
So what she's claiming is that yesterday or whenever at 12 p.m., God literally told her all this, and she's able to also say all of it now.
And no one will ever forget when that happens. There will be great celebrations in the streets of this country and around the world. That great victory has come on behalf of the body of Christ, on behalf of my America, that I'm not giving up to any enemy. So be ready to see what will happen. Regardless of what they show, the line frying.
Say, well, Kat, if you prophesied 8 years, is it that it's 4 now and 4 later?
No, it is not. It's 4 continual years. And get ready for some more impossible things to be said. God did choose Pence for 8
Time travel.
after Trump's 8 years.
Oh, so also on top of that prophetic word, God chose Pence for another 8 years after Trump's 8 years. Just trying to get
Oh,
the
cool.
Cool. But all that to say, when that aired was like what, 3 weeks ago on, I think it said January 7th.
Mhm.
Well,
What had just happened?
inauguration happened.
Wait. Right, but what had happened the day before that also?
Oh,
And here she
on
said,
January 6th, the day that will live in America's history, a God's America, which again, I'm not disputing. Obviously, God is in control of the entire universe and created it. Let me be clear, but
we are not
like,
anti-God. We are
yeah,
very pro-God on this
we're
podcast.
very, very pro God and pro Jesus Christ.
The real God.
But it was the day after the insurrection. So this proclamation came from her, the revelator. And she said, when? The day before at around 12 p.m. When was the insurrection? On January 6th? If this was happening on January 7th, that she's saying this?
Mhm.
Around
Yeah,
the same time as the
it's
insurrection.
very revealing about a lot.
God came to her and said all these things. So I guess the question is like, are you going to pass the sage wand to Kat Kerr? Why
Are you?
not?
No. Mm-mm.
I mean, you did. You never mind. Let me not reveal who said what about Melania.
No, this is a whole nother level evil that I can't hardly, like, my butthole is clenched right now because
well, there's two things in my opinion that are happening. False prophecy and using the name of the Lord in vain. I mean, they're kind of overlapping, but Like, mm-mm. And you're wearing
Mm-mm.
literally a scarf that has the whole Constitution of the United States. So you're also not worshiping God. You're worshiping Trump. You're worshiping America, a country. Yeah.
This is why we are where we are in a nutshell, because this is the poison that seeps into many of our churches across our nation. This is the same poison because trust and know that there are pastors all around the country that look to these people on these major networks as like guides, teachers, et cetera, et cetera. They're all, I mean, this is not an isolated, there's compilations out there of
There were
multiple prophets,
multiple people.
high level,
claim.
revered people that have worked both with political leaders, et cetera, church leaders all across the
They
country.
claim to be prophets. I'll say it that way. They claim to be
So, well, right. No, obviously, like the Bible very clearly states that if a prophet speaks in their prophecy, does it come to fruition? He was a false prophet to begin with. Like we just know this. It's very simple. If you say something's going to happen and you're saying that's the word of God spoken through you and it doesn't happen, whatever you're saying is false. It's very simple, black and white. Yeah, I don't like, obviously we don't put any stock in what she's saying. It's very laughable. Like the first few times I watched some of these people speak in this way, and she's not the only one that continues to speak in this way to this day. They just continue to move the timeline and say, oh, well, actually it's on the faith of the people. You must not have been having enough faith. We must not have enough people praying hard enough. Keep giving your money to our organization so we can continue to support you in your prayer for these things to come true. We were wrong about maybe the date specifically. Maybe we shouldn't have said that, but the overall idea is not wrong because these prophets all around the country, and so they gather um, in this same-minded space and use each other to prop each other up, and it's just a whole, like, we got to get rid of this. We got to get rid of this in our culture and society, because if we're really interested as Christians in bringing other people into our fold, and kind of the point of that is not to evangelize to our way, but just to introduce people to a relationship with God, period. That's all that it is about.
Well, I think you have to look historically
Because
about,
personally, Justine and I have seen the effects in our own lives, like that's why we talk in the ways that we do. This is not that. This is for other gains. And just know that if you're in a church who, your leaders and your pastors are speaking this way, this is not of God. This is not of God. I rebuke it.
yeah,
Period.
agreed. I'm definitely not passing my sage, because I think that's the other tie, that you can't not talk about the intersection of how religion, not God, religion, man-made rules, and the Bible was weaponized to justify the entire founding of a country that was built on the backs of numerous murders and rapes of Native peoples, as well as the dehumanization specifically of African peoples, Black Americans now who were thrown into slavery. And all of that was in the name of God, right? And it's still perpetuated even in our public school systems through a very simple teaching of the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The words sound great, but unfortunately, when it was penned and continuing today, it's still not true. You made it sound nice that this country was founded under God.
I mean, it sounds like you're a bad person if you don't prescribe to these allegiances.
That's right.
That's exactly what's going on right now in our country, because you're either painted as this or that, and yeah, you
But you can't not look at that intersection. So again, if you're still a person who says, well, but like that's extremist, and yeah, I just want us to come together in unity.
this is extreme. This
But
this is extreme. What we
yeah,
just watched.
you can't get to unity without truth and accountability, period. And when you look at things like this, obviously I'm displaying all the different translations of the Bible here, and Deuteronomy 18:22 is the reference. If you're listening and you can't see this on your screen, you could keep going on and on. But plain and simple, when a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord and the thing does not happen or come true, that is the thing which the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him or her. And then down here, this version here, I don't know, CEB, I don't even know what that stands for, but the prophet spoke arrogantly. So depending on the translation you're even looking at, falsely claiming to speak for the Lord. And if it doesn't come to pass, you will know that the prophet was falsely claiming to speak for the Lord. Don't be afraid of any prophet whose message doesn't come from the Lord. So Kat Kerr, I do not pass my sage either. In fact, I rebuke any claims that you made, because guess what, sister? It didn't come to pass. Not because
It didn't come to pass.
Not because Kara or I are such like, oh, we love Biden Harris. Oh, we don't like that. That's not even, I mean,
That has nothing to do with
that's
it.
not even the conversation. The conversation is the founding of America was on this very practice that's still being perpetuated. No, maybe they didn't have pink hair. No, maybe they didn't drape themselves in that Constitution that, by the way, dehumanized Black Americans for hundreds of years and continues to plague our country. But you're perpetuating it by continuing to weaponize the word of God for your own purpose. And her own purpose is she loves Trump and she believes he's a chosen one. She loves Pence. So that's a problem too, because you've also idolized men. And I don't mean because they're male. You've idolized humans, which is also one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not create idols, right? Yeah. Any idols before me?
You shouldn't, have idols before me or worship graven images.
Like, oh, a flag, a constitution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This was an intense go sage yourself, but Kat Kerr, we encourage you to sage yourself.
But not with our sage.
We're not passing you our sage wands.
See, this is an even bigger thing for me, because as somebody that has left the church, like the body church, but
You left
I'm
the
still in the
evangelical
church, capital C.
tradition.
Right. I don't see how you move forward from this without denouncing things like this. Because quite frankly, I would never unify and align myself with somebody like that. Never. So if you're looking for unity, you find out ways in which you can unify and things you can unify around. And that's not it. That's not even remotely it.
I was trying to pull up something really quick I want to point out as well. And again, a call to action for churches, because, and not just churches, let me be clear, for fellow Christ followers who are listening, or those of you who, even if you're agnostic, atheist, many of us have people who in our lives who are very much still embedded in the evangelical Christian tradition in the United States. And what we do know from the data from the election is that, what was it? Like 80%,
75%.
75% of white evangelical Christians voted for Trump again in this election. So one thing I want to show really quick, it's something I posted, and I chose to post this on.
Oh, no. Okay, it is 80%, but 75% of evangelical Christians still believe that Trump is the rightful winner of the election and do not accept the results that we currently have before us, and also do not condemn or the Capitol riot. 75% do not condemn it.
So I'm trying to I'm trying to zone in here so y'all can see. But I posted this on Martin Luther King Day and this is kind of going back to like what we're talking about with the church. And I'm going to tie it together, but I'm going to read it out in case you're just listening and not watching. And this is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. and with his mugshot. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from his letter from a Birmingham jail, had a mugshot.
So,
to be fair, Martin Luther King,
i.e. my way or the highway.
Martin Luther King Jr., who is touted and often quoted by pastors, and after the insurgence of things within 2020 with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, it's who I saw people like white evangelicals in particular post the most about like that, like a standard quote of unity from MLK or from his
You know why?
speech. Hang on. Let me finish really quick. What is then not taught about him having a dream is that this was a 39-year-old man who was assassinated at age 39. He's now revered. He used to have a terrible, like, quality rating with people.
He was called a communist.
Yeah, correct. In his adulthood, he was arrested 29 times. And this is a person who is considered peaceful and an advocate of unity. And he was continually silenced to even speak the truth about unity and speak it in love. Was a man, like a minister, right? Like all these pieces, when you look in history, and it really wasn't that long ago in America, here's the problematic thing. And what he says is exactly true. The moderate, and this is what we get more time. This is what I encounter more times than not, especially working in the DEI space. Even if people would say, well, Kara, Justine, you pulled a video of some lady, like, that's not, if you go to your local church, come on, we know she's out there. So you don't want to be affiliated with crazy, but what you will do is passively, what was it? 80% still believe Trump should have been elected rightfully. 80% of white evangelicals.
75 is the last figure that I saw. Mm-hmm.
You say out one side of your mouth, just like King's quote about the white moderate, you say, well, yeah, I want unity and I love everyone and I don't see color. But yet you are the reason, because you don't want to self-select that you really think what Kat Kerr thinks. But in essence, you actually do. Whether you agree with her prophecy or you think she's crazy, if you still believed that there shouldn't be changes, and again, we're not heralding and endorsing and saying, well, Biden and Harris are the chosen ones. That's not what we're saying. We are saying America in general, we have to continue waking up. We have to. And you can no longer be this type of person who goes to your church on Sundays and just says, oh, that was such a nice message. Look around. Do you want to know how divided our country still is? Outside of COVID, in the past, go to any church on Sunday morning, and that will be your answer of how divided the country is and how much racism still exists, how much white supremacy still exists. Okay, let me calm down.
And trust me, we're third culture kids. So we came from a home that had exposure to different cultures. We have people in our family that are people of color. But I can guarantee you that every church we ever set foot in our childhood was predominantly white, and it still is to this day. That's what Justine means when she says step into any church in America, and you will see quickly that church is the most segregated place you're going to go in America. School would be a close second in some situations,
I would
and
agree.
especially in cities.
Yeah.
And that's intentional, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about systemic racism. Did you know that Black Americans were not allowed to vote until 1969? Am I wrong about that date?
It
1969,
might be 65, but it
68,
was in the late 60s.
65. Okay, so less than a century ago. Okay, and we, when we talk about systemic racism, that's exactly what we mean. When that for that long in our history, from the end of slavery to the time that Black people could vote and go to the same school, the same restaurants, drinking out of the same drinking fountains, go to the same bathrooms, all of those things, and then they finally got a voice to vote. Do you not think that there was some kind of inequity there for all of those years in between? And the way that things were built, and nobody sitting at the table to make those decisions for Black communities until 50, 60 years ago? That it seems like it makes sense to me, and there are people that are watching this that were alive during that time and know this to be true. But yet those are the same people who Miss Cat, or whatever her name was, it
Cat Kerr.
appears to be of that generation, so she knows good and well.
Yep.
Many of these prophets, they're from that generation. They know good and well. And there is an agenda there to keep things the way they are. That's exactly what they're saying they do. They want to keep
Yeah,
America
it
great.
was
They
the
wanna
whole
make America great.
the whole moniker of "Make America Great Again."
I.e., let's go back to the good
meaning,
old days.
This is my own thought. This is just my own thought. There is this fighting of people who are either closeted and don't realize that they have a very colonized white supremacy way of thinking, and that's been infiltrated through the church, through passivity, whatever you want to look at there, or demographically, geographically, right? Whatever. There is a very there's just a very strategic way that things have played out. And it's almost like this is that last effort of people who hold on to those values and worship America and worship the flag ultimately and worship the presidency ultimately more than God and more than seeking truth and more than living out the justice that Jesus lived by and taught by and treated people. They are more consumed with that. And because what's projected, I believe, in the next 10 to 15 years is that we will become a majority minority country. You have more and more generations who are just like us, third culture kids, like you just minorities will become the majority in America. And we're already on that trajectory, especially with Latino populations booming, continuing and contributing to the economy. And because of that, it almost feels in a way, again, it's that last ditch fighting effort of
It's like what your kids
we
do
don't want to be
when they
pushed
really,
out.
really want something,
Yeah.
and you won't give it to them. Some kids will dig in their heels harder than ever to try to prove their point. Are they gonna get what they want? No, they're not. Because there are people that are called parents that are wiser and know better. But there are still going to be those people that try to dig in their heels and try to cling to what they believe to be productive for them in their life. However, for a majority of people living in America, including Justine and I, that old-fashioned or make America great way of living is not in our interest. Our people, like our family in Puerto Rico, was colonized at some point by the United States. And so if you wonder like why we have a passion for this, we are white. But our
Well,
family and our lineage.
hang on. They're colonized by the Spaniards, but to your point, taken over as a commonwealth by the United
And
States.
colonized by the
Right.
United States.
Right.
Because we don't actually in Puerto Rico get the same benefits as the mainland. although we are still under their discretion in their law. So unfortunately, that's the scenario. And depending on which, I don't even want to get into that today, but so the other thing I want to add into this is for those of you who are, I've seen constantly, pretty much since the race conversation began more intensely, I've seen people saying, well, flipping the script, like, okay, so you're actually the racist one because you're talking about white and black. Color doesn't matter to me. I don't see color. Guess what? You need to see color and you need to recognize and honor the differences that we have, not in a way that you're going to discriminate and hate, but in the way that says, hey, I recognize that you growing up in the way that you grew up in an inner city, living in a neighborhood where you had food deserts, where you had a lot of violence, that is definitely different than the way that I grew up. Right. And so I'm not saying that has to do, because there are plenty of white kids that grow up in those situations as well. Mm-hmm. But we have to be able to recognize that to call out a trend in a certain population of people, we don't want to stereotype people, but at the same time, as white people, we have a responsibility to be speaking about these things because we have been the instigators and perpetuators. Am I saying this right?
Yeah, perpetuators. Mm-hmm. We have perpetuated
this narrative for centuries in our country. And so we don't get to sit back and be like, oh, well, actually, Black people are the racist ones because they're saying white people do this. No, we don't get to do that. But we have to be the ones.
Wait, full circle. This is what just came to me. Full circle, Kara.
Are you going to be the revelator?
Can you? No. Here's where it breaks down and why you have to ask questions and get alone with God, with the Bible, with other holy scriptures, with prayer. Because guess what? That argument of now when he say, well, I don't see color. Guess what? Then you can't say anything about JoJo Siwa because guess what? Why would you see her as any different? I don't see genitalia. I don't see sexual orientation. Why would you see that as any different?
We literally don't see genitalia.
Literally, but you're making a thing out of this. But then over here, when it pertains to race, you don't want to see any color, even though literally you could be looking at a person saying that to them who literally has a different skin color than you. That doesn't hold up, people. Go read the Bible. Go read what God said about things. Quit following what somebody told you just because they happen to say that they have the title of pastor or revelator or whatever shit people make up. Again, P.S. I love a lot of pastors that I know, and I know that you're godly people. So don't take that the wrong way and run with it. We're talking broadly about white evangelicals in America. Because that in and of itself
every white
is a
evangelical
whole...
in America.
Yeah.
But also if you're aligning yourself, I mean, I don't care if you say I'm not a radical. Those people who stormed the Capitol were radicals. You aligned yourself with that same leader, and you also align yourself with the same values and the same value system. So whether you were there physically, you were there in spirit in one way or another. Because
let me throw out a common argument. But Kara,
you don't get to say you're neo-Nazi when you align with the same value system that a neo-Nazi subscribes to. Like, just because you're carrying a cross and trying to part the fountain on the mall with your staff, which somebody tried to do.
Yeah, like they were parting the Red Sea.
The Red Sea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because you do all those things and you pray when you break into the Senate chamber from the podium that you've just broken into and desecrated, you are aligning yourself. And when you don't condemn it, you are aligning yourself with it.
Yeah.
You don't, there's no way around that. So
And-
you either are okay
Mhm.
or you're not.
Let me throw out one last argument that I've heard a lot. Well, Kara, I didn't have any choice but to vote for Trump because, well,
Because abortion?
honestly, all it came down to was I can't endorse anybody who supports killing of babies. That's all. And I'm a Christian. So Kara,
But you can because you put babies in cages. And you can because you put children in cages. And you're good with that. You put adults in cages. You kill people with the death penalty. You're fine with that. So
and
all those people were babies one time.
But you also gave complete power and endorsed and wanted a president, even though on the back end, many evangelicals I've had conversations with will say, well, like I don't like him or support most of his stuff, but this is what it came down to for me. It becomes the number one issue because that's what's been the propaganda. And that was the conscientious decision of the church to align back in the 70s, leading up to Reagan's whole push on the war on drugs and getting back to basic values. He got major denominations, including the Southern Baptist Church, who used to support Planned Parenthood. He got them to shift because he knew the largest voter base he could get were white evangelical Christians. And guess what? That was also on the heels of what? Only 10 years earlier were the rights of Black people allowed to vote. That was 10 years later. So they knew those who would be most registered to vote would be white evangelical Christians. And the easiest way to infiltrate messages of right and wrong and morality would be on Sundays in the pews, because those good, wholesome values on the heels of the hippie movement were very, very popular going into Ronald Reagan's being elected. And so when you look at history and you start to see all the interplay of it, if we really wanted to break it down, Donald Trump has paid off numerous women who have also made claims of rape, of sexual assault. He's also paid off women to have abortions. And so guess what?
That's documented. Those are not conspiracies.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are not
documented.
up for debate. Those are lawsuits either currently in action or previously.
So what I'm breaking down here is not bashing people who are pro-life. That's not what I'm breaking down. I'm breaking down is that you literally, if you're a white evangelical listening and you cast your vote for Trump, it had nothing to do with Trump. Like, then quit making it about glorifying some presidential seat because you think that that's the better choice because of one thing that your pastors have preached on, or one thing that you just think is so ugly, when in reality, this is literally an evil person who has incited violence.
Let's talk facts too, because under no administration, Republican or Democrat, has Roe v. Wade ever been reversed or attempted to be reversed, because it is a precedent now. Okay, number one. Number two, had Trump been the savior and so anti-abortion, don't you think he would have flipped that thing around if he could have? Yes, he would. That is the point. And also number three, under all Democratic administrations in the past several decades, abortion rates have actually decreased because the social services on the end that care for the child from birth to death, those have been enhanced under Democratic institutions. Services for moms that are single and don't have a lot of resources, those have been bolstered and boosted.
And by the way, if you want to really get
you can't have either or. You can't have either or, because so many times in the church, you're condemning the mom who's pregnant, who's single, who's young, who can't handle herself, has no knowledge of how to be a mother. You're going to condemn her on this side, but save her baby on this side for what? Like, what is your thought process in that?
And the most recent statistics, because there's a stigma behind it. 1 in 4, I believe, women who identify as Christian and attend church have had an abortion in America.
Right. The stat for Christians obtaining abortion services, the most recent stat, I think it's from 2018 that I saw, is 55% of all abortions are obtained by people who identify as Christian. That
Which
means we are the majority of people obtaining services that we supposedly condemn. That's data. They ask people when they do intake in these clinics how they identify. And that is fact. So you can't be vehemently against something that you actually need and are utilizing. So you want to change that narrative, you change the stigma around sex education, you change the stigma around doing something that's not and like abstinence only sex education, because we all know that has been proven not to work. And you do some things at a local level to get services in place to take care of these moms and help them be successful. Because let me tell you, if I would have gotten pregnant at 15, 16 years old, what would I have done, Justine?
I
What would I have been able to do?
I want to say
Go in shame to my church service and have everybody in my family ashamed of me? How is that? How does that work out?
I want to say this really quick though, because if you're listening and you're feeling convicted right now, or you're one of those people in those stats, that is not to shame you or condemn you or judge you.
No, absolutely not.
Not at all. So I
Absolutely.
just want to put that out there, because why I think that happens and those stats are
It's
so
reality.
real too, is because of the controlling nature of also being embedded in like controlling relationships with men a lot of times, and who are very religious in the church. And so sometimes women do it secretly, especially if you happen to get married young, maybe, and maybe you're in a situation where the man really wants you to keep just popping out kids, and there might be legit medical issues for the mother. There might, like, we could go on and on about this, but like, we're just revealing that. I heard TD Jakes speak about this leading up to the election, and he just said, look, you're not pro-life anyways. You're pro-birth.
No, you're not.
And that's
Right.
the thing. You want it to be pro-birth, but at the end of the day, you also have to be very realistic that look over history and why it was so monumental for Kamala Harris to be VP as the first woman and a woman of color. It's because it is all the men who are making these policies and still want to control what you decide to do with your body.
Here's the other thing, Justine, is in reality, like we will never be in a world who is, we have to have terminations of pregnancies. And we can call it that, we can call it abortion, we can call it whatever.
You're speaking from
we can
medical
call it
perspective. And
from a medical
I mean,
perspective.
To be fair, and I know there are people who are against birth control as well, but birth control is literally a termination of pregnancy.
No, it's not.
No? Okay.
No.
Sorry, my bad.
The morning after pill could be considered that. Okay. But birth control just like keeps you from fertilizing. Like,
sorry, I guess
it never happens.
Yes, I didn't learn that in sex ed.
The eggy and the spermie never get together.
Okay. So stopped.
No,
but you're interfering.
You're interfering with, whatever. Those are all debatable situations. But what I'm saying is there have been plenty of situations working as an ER nurse where we've saved women's lives because they have an ectopic pregnancy, which means that the egg and the sperm have combined and then implanted themselves not in the uterus but in the small fallopian tube. And if that ruptures, you can hemorrhage to death. And you don't know when it's going to rupture. So we'd have women come in from anywhere from 8 to 15, 16 weeks that once you're getting in that range, it usually ruptures. But it's a life-threatening medical emergency. And what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and wait to see if it ruptures or see if your fallopian tube is big enough to handle a 6-pound baby, which it's not. Like, there has to be a medical means to terminate some of these pregnancies, because otherwise the mom's going to die. So there will be people, I'm sure, that say, well, it's just not even considered a viable pregnancy. Medically speaking, there are viable pregnancies and there are non-viable pregnancies.
Right.
And so when you have a non-viable pregnancy, it's because either it's a danger, like the baby is not going to survive
Yeah.
on the earth, like when it's out of the mom's womb, or, I mean, I had a dear friend who carried a pregnancy to almost term, knowing from the middle of her pregnancy on that the baby had a heart defect that's incompatible for life. It was fine when it was connected to her on her insides, but she knew when it came out, it was going to die. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And she chose to carry the pregnancy to term. She delivered it. That was her way of grieving. But it would need to be an option for most people who aren't emotionally stable enough and strong enough to do that in their own right, or don't want to do that. I mean, can you imagine the heart? Like that's heartbreaking
Yeah.
for me to think about, having been pregnant and to carry a child that I know I'm going to have to carry them another 3 or 4 months, knowing that
You're going to die.
I'm going to grow this baby, feel it kick inside of me, hear its heartbeat. And then I know on the other side of that, it's going to die. And so you're telling me that we're going to value, like that is pure hell for some women, for probably all women. And if you would be the person that would choose not to terminate before and just kind of wait and see, there's an equal, like there's so many situations. Don't think of people that get abortions as people that just go into these secret back alleys in Planned Parenthood and sneak in because they had sex a few weeks ago and now they just can't stand to have this baby inside of them and they're going to go traipsing off to the bar afterwards. That ain't it.
Right.
At all.
Yep.
And I think that's in a lot of Christians' minds, I think that's how they think of it. They think of these like seedy whatever doctors' offices that are like not clean and like it's just like a back alley thing. Well, that is how it used to be before it became legalized, but
there's also claims often, like a lot of people say, well, it's the word of God. The word of God is clear. No, if you want to talk about abortion, you want to talk about sexual identity and sexual orientation, or you want to talk about sex before marriage or marriage in and of itself, all of these things that the church,
they're all moving targets. They're all moving targets because now what are we on to, Justine? We're on to trans people.
Yeah. The word of God is not direct about any of those things. And again, I think we've talked about this in a few other episodes, just kind of briefly, but that's a whole other thing. You can watch our series called Losing My Religion on YouTube, because we dove into even the very fact of examining how scripture is translated and who was it translated by and what was the context, because guess what? When the translations happened, women didn't have rights.
Overall, it's not our job to have moving targets of what's good and bad for people's lives. Our job is to love other people. Our job is to spread love, spread the message of love, spread the message that Christ came to teach us, which is to love God, love others,
and
serve others, serve other people.
Foster our own knowledge and understanding and relationship with God.
I don't need a gatekeeper for my faith. I don't need a gatekeeper for my faith, because I can tell you, I could get in my car right now and travel down the road to 10 different churches that are within 5 miles of me. And each one of those pastors is going to teach me a different thing about what I need to be focused on to be holy in my life. No, thank you. I'm over it. It's fine. Like we can go to those church buildings, we can gather, we can praise and worship. I love nothing better than a good a cappella hymn sing. Nothing better fills me with the spirit than that.
A great
I love
liturgical
believers, sharing meals, but I don't need anybody to be a gatekeeper to my faith, and that is not the intention of the church. We are not. Like, it does us no good. We don't get a reward in heaven for condemning other people here on earth. Certainly not. The Bible is very clear about
It's a
that.
colonized supremacy model, which is the same as schools, the same as colleges and universities, the same as churches. It elevates that the one person up in front speaking has all of the power and all the answers and all the knowledge. And you have to listen and learn and follow what they say in order to somehow achieve a little piece of paper, or somehow say that you're connected or a member of a church. Like, that model is very much a controlling model, which dates back to colonization and white supremacy and how our country was founded. Also, like I'm not, and again, we're not America bashers. Like, we love where we get to live. We know we enjoy a lot of freedoms and a lot of privilege, right? Like, that's not, and Karen and
This is why we're doing this, because we get to say all this.
Right. So
But here's the other thing, Justine. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel like these days, the church has probably caused more division than anything. People can look at this and be like, oh, this is causing division. No, I'm just saying something different than what you're saying. I see the world in a different way than you see it. And to be quite frank with you, you're using your elements of your faith and your rules that you follow to judge me and make me an outcast in your world. So you get the ins and you get the marginalized. You
well,
get the politically speaking, yeah, I don't get to be part of these groups anymore because I don't subscribe to the same thing. Certain people in my life won't align with me anymore because, oh, she's radical. I won't even associate myself with her. I won't associate myself with her by supporting her in any way. I won't associate myself in name. I won't do anything to connect because I am doing good over here. And if I let her narrate, what her situation is into my life, that would mean somehow it takes something away from my faith. No, I'm sorry, but if your faith is strong enough and you're just like, it's you and God, you got nothing
I
to
ain't
worry
thinking
about by
about you.
listening to
That's how I feel about it.
different stories. Yeah.
I ain't thinking about you. And guess what? You should not be thinking about me and my salvation that much either, to try to come and say, well, unless
pastoral if I have surgery, that'd be nice, but I don't need you to tell me what I get to believe.
Unless I ask for that person to have that authority, right? That's different too. If you have, like, one of my pastor's wives was my mentor. I desperately needed that type of motherly mentor in my life in my early and mid 20s. And she was that for me.
But tell the people how she mentored you. Did she tell you the rule book?
Nope.
And throw it at you when you didn't follow?
No, it was the first person in the church. And I was very involved in youth group. I attended a private Christian university, like very involved in things. But it was strange to me because it was the first person who never told me what was right or wrong in my life. And it was the first person I could actually legitimately tell all my struggles to. And I knew I wouldn't be judged. Before, it's all just an act. It's all just an act because you're in church and you're not really going to say what you're going through when Susie is saying XYZ and you're like, ooh, okay, no, I have a lot bigger struggles than that. I don't think you really want to know my deepest, darkest secrets. And
historically speaking, and inside the church, confession is considered a big push. You're supposed to confess your sins to people so that accountability. But really, what it ends up turning into 99.99999% of the time is a gossip mill. Also that, but a gossip mill for other people to judge you against their own standards. Again, this is not the place of us as a church. This is not the place of pastors unless, like Justine said, you allow that into your life and you choose a person as an accountability partner because you know that person has something that you need, some wisdom that you need. That is completely different than encouraging people to bare their hearts and souls to, quite frankly, pretty hurt people that don't know their ass from their mouth hole. I mean, a lot of people that I know Sorry, go ahead.
No.
That wasn't a very nice thing to say,
yeah,
but it is the truth through and through.
But the other piece of that is too, those of us like us who you're not really given an option because you are raised from the time you're born in that type of a tradition. And so
Yes.
you believe it as the truth because and for me,
So
we've talked about this before. For me, it wasn't necessarily the church or anything so magical about that. I was having encounters with the Holy Spirit. I didn't know that's what it was, right? And we've talked very deeply about different spiritual things in our own lives, even as children, not because it was ever taught to me in church, but because I would literally hear things or feel things or I have felt connected to the Holy Spirit for a long time. And that didn't come from like growing up in a charismatic church or anything like that. So there's just, I don't
quite
know.
the opposite.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite. And I would say too that like I have memories of being, this is an example of bad accountability and what it can do. I have memories of being in youth group in high school and sitting in a co-ed situation and young men talking about their struggles with masturbation.
What?
Like at church, yes, on a Sunday morning, and we're talking about these things. And I'm like, at the time, obviously, it's very uncomfortable because you're learning, first of all, sex is shameful and bad and
Right.
all these crazy things. But then you hear these poor boys that are like literally just doing what's natural for them in their growing bodies and learning who they are in their masculine selves and their sexuality. And you're having them do this in a co-ed situation. There's so much shame already around it in the purity culture era that we grew up in, but you're publicly shaming. Like what I want to know, like I knew I was never going to marry a church boy, and my husband is a beautiful man of God and has a very close private relationship with God. But let me tell you, I was never going to be attracted or married to a church boy because of that shame that I saw. That was like, whoa, like you let somebody in, like have that much control over your agency, your body, and then you're going to make them publicly shame themselves in so many words because that is just a taboo topic. Anybody who grew up in the church knows this. You don't talk about, but that accountability and confession, no way, no way. No
Well, you also see the
wonder.
correlation, right? We gave the stat about women from the church seeking abortions. Let's also talk really, really briefly, and then I'm gonna move us to something else before we close out. But you told me something one time about like when you look at the usage of porn, where it is concentrated on America, like the most, and also
Yeah.
the most out there, like violent,
The Bible Belt.
kinky, the Bible Belt.
Mhm.
So you can't tell me that
No, they have this data. They have this data.
yeah, by trying to suppress people, that is godly instead of, and again, we're not saying that every church operates this way, we're not saying every Christian operates this way. We are speaking from our own broken experiences and talking through exactly so many of the conversations that we know other people, either you don't know how to have them, you don't know how to handle them, or you are having them and you're losing people in your life left and right because there's no differentiation between like this understanding of, yes, this became a very like uh a very deep moment in our country's culture, but understand that anything we've talked about is not actually about Democrats and Republicans. We are saying, no, now is the time. If you don't know the Bible, if you don't have a personal ongoing dialogue with God every day, if you don't even know why you believe what you believe, and if somebody, again, these are just quick tip. If somebody is saying to you, well, I had to vote this way or I had to do this because that's just what's right. And the word of God is clear. Okay, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more about how you know that to be true in your own life. And also tell me for certain how you know the word of God is clear on that. When you dig a little deeper and ask other people, many times, because they are going to sermons that are a regurgitation of like unity, kumbaya, and all of the pretty things, just like in America, another microcosm of this, right? And how it intersects. Well, I'm going to tell you some parts of history in school, but I'm not going to teach this part because it's really ugly and we don't want to learn about it.
Mhm.
It's the same thing the church does. Even though many theologians, many pastors know full well, there are multiple interpretations of the Bible. There are books that haven't been included. There are things that have been changed over the years, and they know
The
that.
order has been changed.
I mean, yeah. So like they know that, but people still
They're
pick.
just not going to tell you that because they know you're not going to look into it that closely. But guess what? Here we are. We're telling you all about it.
Do not leave your
The thing
faith.
is, Justine,
Do not leave your faith and your
ooh, ooh,
walk and your conviction and all of that. Do not leave that up to another person. Just stop. Stop leaving it up to another person and own your own walk with God and your own life and the way that God has divinely blessed you with gifts and talents. You don't need somebody to tell you how to do that. Now, do we study lots of books and resources and listen to sermons? Absolutely. From all different perspectives, from all different walks of faith. Because there are many, many ways that we can learn about the character and the image of God, and we are made in the image of God.
and my walk is never going to look the same as anybody else's, period. The way I wake up in the morning, my routine, who I choose to be around, my job, like none of that is the same. None of that is identical. I don't share the same household with people that like none of our lives are mirror images of each other, period. We're not even mirror images of our own selves, like day to day. We're just not. So I think this is like divine timing for growth and healing and renewal, a revival of sorts. I really feel that. Justine and I have been talking for months about the growing number of women around us that are being sparked to use their gifts and talents for the good of the kingdom, and just
Yep.
talking plainly and transparently. Because here's the reality: the things that we just finished talking about. I don't know if you guys have heard a lot of people talking in this way. Probably not. We haven't. But the fact of the matter is, these are all underlying things that exist in each of our lives, in our church lives. Whether you're evangelical, whether you're Catholic, whatever you are, whether you're a Muslim, whatever, like these kind of conversations exist everywhere. But it's not something that we like to talk about because it's difficult. It's easy for a person to broadly paint a picture of this is right and this is wrong. But when you get to the nitty gritty of it, we don't talk about these things because we don't want to dissent. We don't want to invite unrest. But the reality is, God kind of pulled the wool off this year and was like, look, here you go. This is the ugliness. I'm showing it to you plain, and you either name it or you push it under the rug for another 100 years, and I just bring it back to you again, because I am going to bring this country to redemption. Like that's the straight and narrow of it. And that was not God talking. That was me talking, by the way.
Thank you for
I am not the
clarifying.
revelator.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So on that note, listeners, again, if you want to stream this via podcast, it's on all platforms, the Sunflower Society. And please check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot of different content. We're going to be putting a lot more content, including this will actually be, I think we're going to stream it on Patreon. We still haven't decided. It might just be on no, we determined no, we're not doing that. We actually have a way. It's going to be on our website, spirituallystrategic.com. So this is a sneak peek.
We might.
So you do actually,
we might
they do actually want to go to YouTube for this, right?
For this episode, this podcast, they're here. I mean, if they're watching, they're here.
Are you watching out there? But we are gonna just show
My hair is just a disaster.
Your what?
I said my hair is just a disaster.
Oh,
That's
mine is
okay.
too today. It's all right. You look beautiful, sister. Okay. So Kara also developed this amazing trailer, and y'all may have seen us posting on our Instagrams. Kara's at Fawn River Beauty, and I'm at Spiritually Strategic if you want to get updates on this. But you may have seen us begin posting actually a few months ago for a show we are producing called Dear Blabby. I will not share anything else, but what we will say, if you liked some of the provocative questions we were asking each other and discussing today, this might be something you want to check out and might be up your alley. But just a little teaser here. I think I was doing like a which Kardashian am I thing. I think I was Kanye. Don't judge me. Ooh, not your grandma's talk show. Well, I am so excited.
It'll look better when it's not screen, but
yeah. Absolutely. But you saw a sneak peek of our trailer, but like we said, that is going to be a lot more provocative. There might be some more swear words, but we try to keep it real in the Sunflower Society too. But we know and have responded to feedback. We know we can get a little heavy, clearly this episode, which we don't shy away from, but we also want people to have a structured talk show format and eventually have that interactivity where they can respond what they would do in the situation, and paying homage to Dear Anne and Dear Abby, a little bit of Sex in the City vibe, a little bit of Sally Jesse vibe, whatever. Jerry. On that note, we hope y'all are taking care of yourselves. And most of all, we hope that you are cultivating and continuing to grow every day in your walk with God. It is nobody else's responsibility except your own. So you heard it here first. You heard it here. Not really. All right. Bye, sister.
Bye, sister.